Proving a geometric figure is a square. Today I am learning the properties of a square so that I can prove that a geometric figure in the coordinate plane is a square. I will know that I have it when I score an 80% or above on my practice assignment. In order to prove that a figure is a square, we must first remember the properties of a square. First property is that a square has 4 sides. This figure here does have 4 sides. Property 2, all 4 sides are congruent. Congruent means the same or equal, so all 4 sides should be the same length. Property 3, opposite sides are parallel. By opposite sides, we mean the sides that are across from each other. So this side should be parallel to this side, and this side should be parallel to this side. Property 4, all 4 angles are right angles. And we know right angles are 90-degree angles. So looking at each of these angles, they should all be 90 degrees. And then finally, property 5, diagonals are congruent. Again, congruent means the same or equal. So when we talk about diagonals, this would be one diagonal, and this would be the other diagonal. So let's begin by looking at this example. For this example, we need to figure out if this figure is a square. And if it is, we need to show how we know. So in order to do this, we're going to go through all of the properties and prove that those properties are true or untrue. So let's start with property 1. So up at the top, I've told you what to do and then what it means. So in order to answer the question, does the figure have 4 sides? We're going to count the number of sides. This is 1 side, 2 sides, 3 sides, and 4 sides. What it means, if you count 4 sides, then the figure has 4 sides. So let's go ahead and answer the question. Does the figure have 4 sides? Yes, the figure has 4 sides. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next property. Property 2, all 4 sides are congruent. So what we will need to do to figure this out, we will need to calculate the length of each side by counting or using the distance formula. So because these are not vertical and horizontal lines, we cannot count. We will have to use the distance formula. So let's go ahead and identify the ordered pairs. All right, now we have our ordered pairs. So now we're going to go ahead and do the distance formula 4 times in order to find the length of all 4 sides. So you guys already know how to use the distance formula. So go ahead and pause the video and find the length of each side and then press play when you're ready to see the answers you should have gotten. Okay, for all 4 sides, you should have gotten 5 square root 2. So as far as what it means, if all sides have the same length, they are congruent. So now we can answer our question for step 2. Are all 4 sides congruent? Yes, all 4 sides are congruent. So far we have proved 2 out of the 5 properties. Let's move on to property 3. Property 3. Opposite sides are parallel. So in order to figure out if opposite sides are parallel, we're going to find the slope of each side using the slope formula or by counting rise over run. So I'm just going to use rise over run. So let's look at PQ first. Okay, so if I'm starting at P and going to Q, I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is 5 over 5, which equals 1. So the slope of PQ is 1. All right, let's go ahead and look at QR. So if I'm starting at Q and I'm going to R, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a -5 over. And then to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 5 over 5. And when I simplify that, that is negative 1. Now, if I'm finding RS, and I'm going from R to S, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a negative 5. And then I'm going to go to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is a negative 5, and that simplifies to be 1. And finally, SP, I will go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a negative 5 in the numerator. And then to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a positive 5. That will simplify to be negative 1. Now that we found the slope of each side, what it means, if opposite sides have the same slope, they are parallel. So opposite sides would be PS and QR. Do they have the same slope? We have negative 1 and negative 1. And now let's look at QP and SR. They have the slope of 1 and 1. Okay, so now we can answer our question. Are opposite sides parallel? Yes, opposite sides are parallel. And again, we know they're parallel because the opposite sides have the same slope. All right, let's move on to property 4. All 4 angles are right angles. So what we would need to do to figure this out is find the slope of each side, which we've already done. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that in. Let me go back to check so I can remember. Okay. So this was 1, this was 1, and then these were negative 1. Okay. Now that we found the slope, what it means, if consecutive sides have opposite reciprocal slopes, then the shared angle is a right angle. So when we talk about consecutive sides, we're talking about sides that are right next to each other. So looking PS and SR, these sides are right next to each other. Are their slopes opposite reciprocal? So let's look at negative 1. So negative 1 is the same as the fraction negative 1 over 1. What's the opposite reciprocal of that? Well, you change the sign and flip the fraction. So that's going to be a positive 1 over 1, which is just positive 1. So negative 1 is opposite reciprocal of positive 1. So yes, that is a right angle. Let's look over here. Positive 1 and negative 1. Yes, that's opposite reciprocal. Positive 1 and negative 1. Yes, those are opposite reciprocal. And then positive 1 and negative 1. So yes, those are opposite reciprocal. So if all of the consecutive sides have opposite reciprocal slopes, then that shared angle is a right angle. So are all 4 angles right angles? Yes. All 4 angles are right angles. All right, we just have one more property to look at. The diagonals are congruent. So the first thing that we need to do is calculate the length of each diagonal by counting or by using the distance formula. So when we say diagonal, we're looking at opposite vertices. This would be one of the diagonals. Let me change my color. And this would be the other diagonal. So do we notice that these are vertical and horizontal lines? So all we have to do is count. We don't even have to use the distance formula. So let's go ahead and look at this line segment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this line segment, D equals 10. Now let's find the other diagonal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. D equals 10. If the two diagonals have the same length, they are congruent. So are the diagonals congruent? Yes, the diagonals are congruent. So now Is this geometric figure a square? Yes, it is. And we know that it is because all 5 properties are true.